I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, the best kept secret in music reviews. We're digging through 2014 records that you guys asked for that we want to review. Wild Beast's Present Tense is up today. In 2011, Tom, which was a long time ago.
Yeah.
I actually remember when we reviewed Smother, their 2011 release. I mean, we really liked that album when it came out. Wild Beast, you know, they're an indie rock group that does a lot of... They're actually from England, which I didn't know.
Yeah, me either.
It kind of fits with the vocals once you know that, but I guess I never even put that together before or had forgotten about that at some point since we reviewed them before and probably did look that up.
Yeah.
But, you know, they have this like overwhelming sense of cool, you know, if there was a color associated with Wild Beast music, it would be blue. Like, they have this tinge of kind of, not despair, just kind of this austereness to them. And the way that they communicate through their, you know, just beautiful indie rock songwriting, lots of beautiful guitar melodies, electronic melodies, particularly more on Present Tense than in Smother, but you're seeing, and then the cool vocals. I mean, the vocalist has a voice very unique to his own, and they do a lot of the lead vocalist and backup vocalist do a lot of cool things together to make this a very lush presentation.
Yeah, it is a very unique sound when you combine all the aspects. And I think that you can take individual pieces of it and kind of think about where they're pulling from. I hear some Depeche Mode at times in the instrumentals. The vocalist, to me, sounds like a combination of Anthony from Anthony and the Johnsons and Gavin from Dredge.
Yes.
If you like combine those two. But the music sounds nothing like either of those groups, which is kind of neat.
Pretty high quality vocals. I mean, I mean, you and I don't prioritize quality vocals very highly. I mean, all we care about is that the vocalist, you know, emotes a little bit.
Yeah, and this
is all emotion. But like I would say, like if I cared about vocal quality, this is very high quality vocal.
And it's not only about the quality of the vocal presentation, but also just how unique it is.
Absolutely.
I think that, you know, I drew a rough comparison to a couple other artists, but really I think that this is a vocal style that you're not getting a lot in this brand of music. For this kind of indie rock with a little bit of electronic focus. Especially in the sense that the vocals has a lot of range. You get a lot of like kind of high, sweet falsettos. And you get those really low kind of creepy feel.
Yeah, what you remember is the falsetto, but he does go low very often.
But there is this like bit of pain through every bit of that range, and I think it just ekes out of every like orifice of the music, and that's what I feel really brings that pull to Wild Beast, is that they have that very natural kind of sense of it's not quite angst, it's not quite despair, but it's just like a tad bit of melancholy that just pulls you in, and I absolutely love that about them.
Well said. And where Smother was kind of this sprawling thing that did all this cool stuff and had a lot of ideas on it, I'd say Present Tense is a bit more focused. I mean, this sound anyways is definitely, you know, pretty consistent from the starting track, Wanderlust, which is this beautiful building track, one of the longest tracks on the album, and it's just a great way to kick off the album. Both you and I picked that track. But this album plays a little bit more with songwriting, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. I feel like it's not as much that the sound has gone all over the place. You hear similarities to Smother, like you said. I think they picked one aspect of Smother and focused in on it a little bit more. But yeah, they're playing with their songwriting a little bit more. There are several tracks that just completely split in the middle and kind of have like, you have the two halves of the track. You mentioned Wanderlust is one of those. Daughters is another one of those. And I think that that's a really cool approach because it fits with the fact that this album flows really well. You know, if it was just a jarring change in the middle of the song, and it also didn't make sense with the songs around it, then it wouldn't make for a very cohesive and pleasurable album listening experience. But I think that they really nailed it with this. I mean, every song makes sense with the song next to it while still being able to carry its own identity.
Absolutely. And so many bands in the recent, like, 5 years have really gotten into this 80s-esque production style where they're just throwing obscene amounts of reverb on everything. You know, especially like drums, there's a lot of synth melodies that just sound 80s. And Wild Beast certainly falls into that category. However, I would argue that they've always tended to do this a bit more tactfully than their peers.
And they make it sound more modern.
They do. And I think Present Tense actually is a great example of how you can do that 80s production style and do it in a modern way that actually is still very high quality and sounds good.
Yeah,
There's
it doesn't sound cheap.
Yeah, so many other artists falter and make it sound kind of cheap or cheesy or gimmicky. I don't think Wild Beast, it sounds very original and organic.
And I think that the vocals paired with that helps as well.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
I mean, instrumentals, looking at them on their own, you know, there is kind of that 80s vibe, but then the vocalist is like nothing that you would hear with that kind of sound if it was something that was coming out in that generation. So I think that Wild Beasts have really created kind of a niche for themselves, and for any artists that are even somewhat similar, that are trying to kind of come in on their niche, they're showing that they can do it better.
Yep. And now, one thing that I think we noted back when Smother came out, and now we have to note again with present tense, is Wild Beasts have a talent for creating memorable melodies.
Oh,
whether it's synth bass or guitar bass or vocal bass. I mean, the vocal melodies here are very good too. And the way that they construct their songs to where like the different melodies kind of come to the front and the others kind of drift away, and just the way that the whole, you know, composition works together, it's a quite moving experience. I mean, particular, you know, Wanderlust, we mentioned that's just for sheer power. But two tracks that we were talking about before we turned on the camera, track 4, Sweet Spot, one of your track picks, and one of my track picks, track 9, Past Perfect. Both of these, you know, all of the instrumentation does just a wonderful job. It's never too over the top, but never too minimalistic either. It's the right balance, and it's like they're feeding you the melody lines at the right times, and it just hits this sweet spot. That's what it does. And you can't help but just fall in love with some of these songs. I found it particularly hard to pick tracks because all of the tracks on this album are very good. Now I know that a lot of people are mentioning tracks like track 2, Nature Boy, and track 3, Mecca. Actually, those are my 2 least favorite songs on the album. This album, as it kind of opens up that middle of the album with Sweet Spot, Daughters, Pregnant Pause, and then, you know, track 8, A Dog's Life, on through the end, is just fantastic. And the more that I listened to this record, the more that I realized that it was back heavy, and I really like back heavy albums, and that's, you know, but it's a very well balanced record, I think, through and through. You can put it on, be blown away by the first track, and enjoy it the whole time.
I think there's a lot of great songwriting here, and I'd love to see a band, instead of just trying to make huge shifts with their style, just try to hone in and polish up their songwriting. Not enough bands are doing that. Still, you know, if you know me and my taste, what I'm looking for in an album, I love albums that at least have some kind of climactic part where things just explode. And I don't feel like that necessarily gets here. Now, you know, that's not a complaint about this album in general and how they're executing it. That's just my personal taste. I know a lot of people are really digging this one, and that won't bother them as much, but I would definitely have loved it a little bit more if there were 1 or 2 tracks that really were just like high energy and just kind of provided a climax, because some of those low points like New Life and A Dog's Life would probably be it would even have a little more profound of an impact on the listening experience.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. To me, that's what keeps this out of like the upper 80s, low 90s, is the fact that it didn't have that. But still, I mean, this is exactly what I would have wanted to see from Wild Beasts, like where they take their sound. And what I worry about is that if they keep releasing albums in this vein without changing their sound at all, I mean, they kind of changed their approach a little bit on this one, but if they don't change their sound at some point, you're going to eventually be kind of cannibalistic on their own, you know, work. And that's something that, you know, bands have to have the foresight to avoid that happening. You know, Spoon, I'm talking to you.
I think they're just taking baby steps here. I hope I'm right. We'll see.
What are you going to give this one?
I'm going to give it an 82.
Okay, 81. So, my score doesn't matter. 82 from Velocities and Music. That means we really like this record. Wild Beasts, present tense, one of our favorites so far of 2014. What did you guys think? Leave us a comment at www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic. As always, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let us know what albums you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jay.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.